Well, the last leg of 2017 was a bit rough for me since I had a hard drive die out in October, and then with VidMe closing down in December. And because of VidMe's closure, I decided to end Season 7 of the American Anime Otaku early. However, there is one thing I do want to finish off 2017 with, and that is my list of the top 4 best and worst anime of the year as the closure. So, without any ado, this is the American Anime Otaku's top 4 best and worst anime of 2017. Let's start off with the best.
Should old acquaintance be forgot, and days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup o' kindness yet, for days of old lang syne. We twa run about the braes and put
Number 4. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. This has got to be the funniest anime I have ever seen since Amagi Brilliant Park. I also love how warm and friendly the atmosphere of this anime feels like. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid tells an interesting story of a normal office worker who befriends a dragon named Toru. As a result, the dragon takes a liking to her and offers to be the young office worker's servant. In return, Miss Kobayashi helps her and her acquaintances adjust to everyday life in the human world. However, Toru isn't the only dragon who will show up in Miss Kobayashi's household. The gist of this show's comedy is these dragons taking on human form and trying to adapt at living in the modern world. From cooking to shopping and watching the house, the way these fantastical characters react to living in the modern world is ripe for some genuinely hilarious moments. While it is hilarious, my biggest concern about the show was that it would take its comedy a step too far. Nonetheless, the characters are fun and varied, and I like how well connected and developed these characters are. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is mainly a comedy, and it does very well in that aspect. All the sardonic comments and hilariously overblown moments from both dimensions is what gives this anime its deliciously spicy taste. Despite some questionable fan service at times involving an underage dragon, this was a genuinely funny anime. One I definitely recommend.
for old lang syne, dear, for old lang syne.
Number 3. Little Witch Academia. There is something I really love about an underdog story, probably because I'm an underdog myself. But with passion, hard work, and perseverance, every dog has its day. And despite the fact that I am really sick of ridiculous fantasy schools, Little Witch Academia is a rare exception. I love the 2 short films, and this anime does a really good job at delivering that same magic. There is a real sense of magic in this series, a very whimsical, all-encompassing magic with fairy-like qualities. I especially love how optimistic this anime can get. The show's biggest strength is its lovable cast, particularly Akko. She's passionate about magic even though she's not very good at it, and is generally upbeat and excited. Her determination, optimism, and positive goal makes Akko a fun character despite her clumsiness or her inexperience with magic. Little Witch Academia is a fairly episodic series despite an ongoing story and is full of lovable characters and generally positive messages. In a way, it kind of reminds me of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. That's also how Little Witch Academia ultimately develops as well. The girls get together and learn the value of friendship as well as their faith in magic. Its lighthearted approach and positive messages as well as its lovable characters makes this anime a very easy show to approach for those wanting to get into anime. So you want to know what makes anime so great? This is a prime example.
For old lang syne, dear, for old lang syne.
Number 2. Made in Abyss. The first thing you will notice about Made in Abyss is that it is breathtakingly beautiful. This is an anime that just breathes atmosphere. This is one of those anime shows you really wouldn't mind the story slowing down, also that you can let that atmosphere seep in. Now, I have not seen many anime with such fluid flowing animation besides those of Ghibli films, and it certainly does help that the background animator of Made in Abyss came from Studio Ghibli. But don't let that beautiful atmosphere inside this endless abyss fool you, as dangers lurk within every turn. This anime starring a cute 9-year-old little girl and her cyborg companion takes some extremely dark turns despite giving off the light-hearted sense of adventure. The show eases you into the concept of fragility, punctuated by the occasional bursts of violence and peril. The show may have childlike characters and beautiful environments, but death just might lurk around any corner. Made in Abyss is quite original in handling the fantasy setting. Perhaps even more uncomfortable for certain viewers might be the frankness with which the show approaches the characters' budding sexuality. The show treats the subject rather tastefully despite a few risque jokes on the subject. Now, Made in Abyss is an anime I can universally recommend. It is a great story that compels the viewer to finish from the start with active and lively characters that can be described even more through their interactions with each other. Bottom line, this is an anime I definitely recommend, although it is not for the squeamish.
For old lang syne, dear, for old lang syne.
And the number one best anime of 2017 is The Ancient Magus' Bride. Oh, Production IG and Wit Studio have done it again. Unlike last year's rather meh Kabaneri and the Iron Fortress, which can pretty much be summed up as Attack on Titan with trains. This anime, however, can be summed up with a beautifully paced story, a distinct atmosphere, and a complex narrative full of mysticism and surprises. The animation is gorgeous, and the direction is on par with a Studio Ghibli production. This anime is magical and dreamlike the way Studio Ghibli movies often are. Oftentimes, I have to remind myself this anime's story takes place in a present-day setting. What really helps this anime is how it doesn't rush the storytelling. It spends time showing a beautifully crafted world to help draw you in. It gives The Ancient Magus' Bride a look at a look that is part Harry Potter, part Snow White, part Beauty and the Beast, while drawing upon and modernizing various European fairy tales. This makes the subject matter rather complex and offers many different avenues and lore to explore. This is one of those series that leaves you in awe with the world and the characters living within it. I did, however, find myself constantly wanting more and more character development. While it is there, it develops slowly as the show progresses, though it's not that much of a big deal. And I really cannot deny that I really like the world itself as it is on its own. This is a beautiful anime, and that is why it deserves to be number one in the best anime of 2017. The anime world may have given us some great shows to remember in 2017, but it also gave us some real stinkers, whether it is incompetent, laughably bad, or just plain terrible. This list is all about the anime this year had to offer that we probably would do better off forgetting about.
For old lang syne, dear, for old lang.
Number 4, King's Game. Now, here is something that might be interesting. A group of kids find out that they are forced into a game of survival by a mysterious, omnipresent, and seemingly omnipotent being on par with the Saw series, Battle Royale, or Danganronpa. The titular King's Game mostly consists of an anything goes game where you have to obey the king's orders that you receive via text messages. Anyone who fails to meet his demands or refuses to obey them are swiftly punished. Sounds like a fun psychological thriller, right? Well, you'll learn rather quickly that the show's writing plummets in quality almost immediately. Oh, this show has many problems. The story runs around in circles, introduces characters just to violently kill them off for the dumbest of reasons, and every episode has the same plot structure, including invasive flashbacks to previous events without any setup. It's almost as if this is the second season of an already established anime. I assure you, this is the first episode. Hell, even the way the King's Game started makes little to no sense. On top of that, the anime just throws you into it without any sort of setup. The plot was convoluted and inconsistent, and the rules to this game changed constantly that it was hard to keep up with what was going on. The characters' personalities literally change whether it suits them with little to no provocation, and they behave and react in the most bizarre and unrealistic ways. Finally, there are many plot holes that make the story seem like it was thrown together in a scrapper in some places and incomplete in others. So I'd only recommend this show if you are into animated gore, but that's literally about it. This is a literal waste of time. Do not waste your time watching it. It's literally gore for gore's sake.
For old lang syne, dear, for old lang syne.
Number 3, Dynamic Chord. The Love Live series was a pleasant surprise, full of interesting and cute characters. Now, what if we did the exact same thing revolving around a boy band? Well, 4 of them anyway. What could possibly go wrong? Well, plenty. The main problem with this is that for an anime that revolves around a boy band, why is almost all of the runtime spent on something that's not music? Essentially, the story revolves around a trio of boy bands trying to keep another one from disbanding. It is about as fun as you would expect. This anime is as soulless as it seems. It was created primarily to sell singles and merchandise. There are also random music videos in the middle of the episode for no apparent reason, and lots of jerky camera to make the still frames seem like they're in motion. Oh, by the way, I have never seen animation quality this inconsistent and roughshod with errors throughout, as if the head animator was fired and replaced by another one after every episode. Combine that with PlayStation 1 era CGI, and the music in this anime is the kind that would make even Simon Cowell's ears bleed. Beyond that, the anime is way overcrowded for a show that is only 8 episodes long. At least with how bad it is actually unintentionally hilarious on how inept this anime is. One can see it as if it were this year's anime equivalent of Birdemic or The Room. Much like a certain other show I will be talking about later. But whatever you do, know what you are getting into and don't watch this anime alone. It's only a good anime to watch if you want Love Live, but with none of the charm.
For old lang syne, dear, for old lang syne.
Number 2. Soryo to Majiwaru Shikiyoku no Yoro ni. The only reasonable thing that I can say about this anime is, what the hell am I looking at? This is a weird one because I can definitely say that this is a hentai, yet at the same time it is not. If anything, it feels like what would happen if you made an anime out of 50 Shades of Grey. And boy, howdy is this 50 Shades of Grey. It seems to be about some girl who falls in love with a boy and years later reunites with him, finds out that he is a monk and just so happens to be his fiancé, and sexiness ensues. All the earmarks of hentai are here too. The characters are bland, the plot is non-existent, and most of the screen time is our two lovebirds making it out like rabbits. It's like having a porno flick trying desperately to convince the audience that it's not a porno flick but a romance. Much like 50 Shades of Grey. The biggest question is, how was this allowed on TV? Granted, there were 3 versions of this show. One that was sanitized for broadcast TV, one that was shown on ATX very late at night for obvious reasons, and then there was the online-only hentai version. If that's not enough, the broadcast and ATX versions were so heavily censored to the point they were unwatchable. I guess you can call this an interesting experiment on how to make your hentai not hentai and try to get it shown on TV, but there is no beating around the bush the fact that it is still, for all intents and purposes, a hentai. Try to hide it all you want. The problem is that this isn't the only pseudo-hentai anime to be aired on TV in 2017, and I really hope this isn't becoming a trend.
For old lang syne, dear.
And the number 1 worst anime of 2017 is handshakers. Yeah, you knew this was coming, people. If you were looking for a poorly animated CGI anime whose goal is to give you motion sickness or epileptic seizures, this is the anime for you. Not only is this anime nauseating to look at due to the butt-ugly visuals, you also have a jerky camera that moves and pivots in bizarre angles, and it doesn't stop moving even for as much as 5 seconds. It's bad enough that it would require a warning from the Surgeon General. Everything moves way too fast to process what is going on, to the point it becomes a mess. Yeah, the animation in Gankutsuo and its art style was prone to giving me headaches at times, but not nearly as on the level that this anime provides. This is what happens when the animation director goes nuts with the CGI. The show also has its share of what might look like traditional cell animation, clashing with the background art that looks like it is designed in 3D. It's reminiscent of the original PlayStation era, where 2D sprites are placed on 3D backgrounds. Yes, the animation is that inconsistent. On top of that is the absurd color scheme the anime uses. All of the colors in this anime are so bright, they look bleached out. The other problem is a story with a stupid as hell premise that makes absolutely little to no sense, going as far as directly contradicting itself on several occasions. If that's not enough, let's throw in some of the creepiest fan service imaginable, with a girl who constantly orgasms to chains magically wrapping around her. Yeah, it's that stupid. A poorly written or laughably silly story is one thing, but when your anime's visuals cause the viewer to become physically ill after watching it, is more than crossing the line for me. If you thought the camera angles and Battlefield Earth made you nauseous, wait until you give this anime a try. Now turn that thing off before I throw up. Before we move on to this year's guilty pleasure, I think I have at least one dishonorable mention. And I think you all know what that is.
For old lang syne, dear, for old
This year's dishonorable mention goes to Neo Yokio. If this were any other anime, it would very easily be listed as one of the worst anime of the year, if not for its origin. That being said, I do not count Neo Yokio as anime. My definition of anime is a Japanese-produced and animated show made initially for a Japanese audience. Neo Yokio, on the other hand, was clearly made for an audience of one. That one person, of course, being either Jaden Smith or Ezra Koenig. What is even more shocking is that this is animated by Production IG. Knowing their lineup of shows, keep that in mind considering what we are in for. This is the very definition of a vanity project. Hell, this thing is essentially based on the ramblings on Jaden Smith's Twitter persona. The plot, if you can call it that, is inconsistent, the story is ridiculous, the main characters ramble off like lunatics, the animation is terrible, this thing is incredibly full of itself, and chock full of product placement that makes Man of Steel look dignified. In the end, it is a show that has no idea of what it wants to be. It starts off as a heavily Americanized vampire hunter anime to I don't even know what to call it. This ends up all resulting in a beautiful dumpster fire on par with Birdemic and The Room. Don't get me wrong, whatever this thing is, this is bad. It's inconsistent, makes little to no sense, and half-assed like hell. I'm even tempted to call it quarter-assed. Bottom line, if this is the best Netflix can do, maybe they shouldn't be in the business of producing anime. Oh, and Jaden Smith, just because you have enough money from writing off of your dad's coattails to make your own anime about yourself, doesn't mean you should. And so we come to my guilty pleasure of this year, and yeah, I think you know what it is.
For old lang syne, dear, for old lang.
This year's guilty pleasure is Kemono Friends. Welcome to Japari Park, an untamed paradise where many anthropomorphic humanoid animals known as friends live their everyday lives in all corners of this natural environmental preserve, all made possible by a mysterious substance known as Sandstar. Follow a young girl named Kaban, who, with the help of an anthropomorphic serval, travel the dense ecosystems of the park to discover her true origins and the mysteries that the park holds. Okay, it's not the best looking anime I have ever seen. It looks like it was made with an amateur CGI program with a next to nothing budget and an aesthetic straight out of a show made for Disney Junior, which takes some getting used to. That's one of the reasons this anime didn't quite make the top 4 list despite its surprisingly explosive popularity. But gosh darn it, is it so charming with an adorable set of characters? It was enough so that it became the most popular anime of winter 2017, against much flashier and higher budgeted shows like Miss Kobayashi's Maid Dragon, Konotsuba, Little Witch Academia, Blue Exorcist, and Yojo Senki. Not to mention, the show had its set of controversies for the year as well. Let's take Kadokawa taking the show's director, Tatsuki, the one guy who made this thing work and turned what could very easily have been a turd into gold, and fire him over creative differences. Hold on a second! Jeez, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. Thankfully, despite the controversy surrounding the firing of the anime's director, this anime has managed to be hugely popular to at least managing a cult following. Despite seemingly being made for very little kids, the show has a bit of charm, mystery, and depth to it to keep even adults interested. So despite the anime's amateurish art style and quality, I wish the production team luck on their future endeavors, as they will hopefully one day create some quality anime. And stay away from the opening theme if you do not want it stuck in your head. That thing is an earworm. Well, that's that for my look back at what 2017 had to offer in the world of anime. And with that, let's move on to see what 2018 has in store for us, as Season 8 of the American Anime Otaku is officially underway. Until then, this is the American Anime Otaku signing out.